Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to Hymns and Reflections. This is the part where we play some hymns and then we reflect on them, hence the title.
Hymns and Reflections.
I'm Pastor Brian Beisel. I'm the pastor here at Trinity Lutheran Church in Valley View, where we're recording. I'm also the pastor at Freedom's Lutheran Church in Branch Township, both in Pennsylvania.
And I am the pastor at Elysburg United Methodist Church and Miller's Crossroads United Methodist Church.
And your name is?
Michelle Beisel. Sorry.
We're married. I think everybody knows that. It's like our church people that watch this, right? But, you know. Maybe.
And we talk about our son.
Yeah, so, I mean, hopefully people catch up on that. So, anyway. The first hymn we have for this evening is Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. Come thou fount of every blessing, tune my heart to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy, never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. While the hope of endless glory fills my heart with joy and love, teach me ever to adore thee, may I still thy goodness prove. Here I raise my Ebenezer, hither by thy help I'm come, and I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home. Jesus sought me when a stranger, wandering from the fold of God, he to rescue me from danger interposed his precious blood. Oh, to grace how great a debtor daily I'm constrained to be. Let that grace now like a fetter bind my wandering heart to thee. Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, for to leave the God I love. Here's my heart, oh, take and seal it for thy courts above. Just as a note, normally I play a full-size guitar. Today I'm playing my Martin Backpacker. Sounds a little more banjo-esque. So that's the difference of sound you're hearing. So what do we know about this hymn?
Well, that's why I'm pulling up the hymn history.
I do know that the text was written by a guy named Robert Robinson, 1735 to 1790. He was alive during the time of the American Revolution. That's really interesting. Robinson.
He was a barber's apprentice and fell under the powerful influence of George Whitefield's preaching.
Really? He was a barber's apprentice?
Yes.
That's an interesting life in that time. Because you don't just cut men's hair like you do now.
He has an autobiographical thread that goes through this hymn.
Okay. So this hymn is in part about his own life, his own experience.
Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. It is thought to be particularly autobiographical, referring to Robinson's early life when his mother sent him to London to be an apprentice. It was during this time, according to hymnologist. Did you know that was a thing?
A hymnologist, yeah.
Kenneth Osbeck, that he associated with a notorious gang of hoodlums and lived a debauched life until he came under the spell of Whitefield.
Okay, so it said his mother sent him to London. Is he from England or is he from this country? What does it say there? Because I'm curious.
British. He's British.
He's British, okay. That's really interesting. So he had a wanderer's heart.
Yes, and he was converted in 1755 and first preached in a Calvinistic Methodist chapel. That is something, a Calvinistic Methodist chapel.
That's kind of a hodgepodge of all kinds of different traditions.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's really interesting there, I want to talk about this wanderer's heart part. You know,
I know that that's kind of a part of our culture. I have that in me. I've said that to a number of people, that I know that I have a roamer's heart. You know that about me. I like to roam all over the place. And that makes this time a little difficult. And I'm not the only one.
A little. You were going nuts by day 3.
You're right. I was going nuts by day 3. Because I was stuck in a house in Shamokin with you and our son. Now, I don't mean that, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I am saying that our son is also a fairly restless person. And so it's...
I'm sorry, that's kind of an understatement.
That is a very big understatement.
This morning he woke up and he said, I am tired of being here.
He did say that, didn't he? I am tired of being here. Yes, he did. And maybe you're feeling like that. And the guy who wrote this hymn, he felt like that. And so he's, there's this whole idea of God reining us in. This whole idea that maybe sometimes we want to do things and we want to be places and we want to do things for our own happiness and our own pleasure and not God's. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of the things that I talk about missing aren't exactly holy things. It's not really holy. I don't know. I've had a holy experience in a record store time or two, but it's not given over to our faith, I've said repeatedly, we've been given the opportunity to seek inward and to look at ourselves.
But it's not only to seek inward.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the ways that we can connect even outwardly that we could not before.
Yep. So like on Wednesday, when we went to a church in Elysburg and picked up milk and dropped it off to an appliance store, Mayor and Kaler here in Valley View, and where that milk was then taken to people. And I think of all the things that were connected in that journey there that wouldn't have otherwise happened.
Well, and I was thinking even further than that. If we were all out of the house as much as we are on a regular basis in a real life situation, I would not have been able to sit at a computer this morning and talk to someone in China and someone in England
mm-hmm.
and someone in Philadelphia at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, quote unquote, normal life is one big distraction in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
It is. We don't like to think of it that way. It's amazing to me how we ascribe, things like haircuts and beer and all these different things, these vices. We are driven by our vanity sometimes, and maybe in that moment God's trying to rein us in away from that.
Well, I think that in some ways this will allow us to see what is important.
Mm-hmm.
To really embrace that's important. And that doesn't mean that we'll spend the rest of our lives inside our homes.
Sure, right.
But hopefully it means we will learn to embrace those things that we really should be embracing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The opportunity of every situation. Yeah. Huh. Should we go to the second hymn?
Sure.
So this is help us accept each other. We're going to do this to the tune of the Church's One Foundation because it can be sung to that. It has a different tune as well, but this is the one that I'm familiar with. So here we go. Let's give this a shot. Let me give just a second to set this up. I just want to make sure that the words and the chords are right next to each other so I don't mess up. All right.
Help us accept each other as Christ accepted us. Teach us as sister, brother, each person to embrace. Be present, Lord, among
Sorry. I never messed up in the middle of a hymn during one of these. This is like week 4, right? Week 5?
5, I don't know.
Okay. Sorry.
Want to start over?
Nope. Be present, Lord, among us, and bring us to believe. We are ourselves accepted and meant to love and live. Teach us, O Lord, your lessons, as in our daily life we struggle to be human and search for hope and faith. Teach us to care for people, for all, not just for some, to love them as we find them, or as they may become. Let your acceptance change us, so we that may be moved in living situations to do the truth in love, to practice your acceptance until we know by heart the table of forgiveness and laughter's healing heart. Lord, for today's encounters with all who are in need, who hunger for acceptance, for righteousness and bread, we need new eyes for seeing, new hands for holding on. Renew us with your Spirit, Lord, free us, make us one. It's really difficult when you have the words on one page and the chords on the other. It's all right. I love these words.
Me too. This is one of my favorite hymns. I think the first time I sang it was probably seminary. It's got a really beautiful tune too, but if you can't find the chords to it, it's hard to sing it.
I like the tune to the Church's One Foundation.
I wasn't saying I didn't like the tune to the Church's
Teasing you,
One
yes.
Foundation.
Teach us to
Anyway.
care for people, for all, not just for some. It's too often we like to care for the people who look and act like us.
Right. So this was written by Frank Kahn, who lived from 1929 to 2009.
Okay.
He was ordained in the United Reformed Church and served in England and was a native of Haarlem in the Netherlands.
Haarlem in the Netherlands. Very
Yes.
different from Harlem
Yes.
in New York. Yes.
Um,
Didn't know there was another Harlem.
so so he was one of a group of 4 English language hymn writers that came to this side of the Atlantic Ocean and became the leaders of the hymnic explosion.
Hymnic explosion.
Fred Pratt Green, Timothy Dudley Smith, Brian Wren, and Fred Kahn. Together, the 4 account for many of the hymns written since 1965 that appear in the United Methodist Hymnal and in many other hymnals. This is a United Methodist site that I get these histories from.
Sure.
These writers, along with their counterparts from the United States, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, brought the language and theological vision of hymnody out of the earlier Victorian era and into the late 20th century. So Kahn explained the origins of this hymn. This text was set in motion upon reading a Bible study article Mrs. Jackie Matonin had written for the Cumberland Presbyterian Church.
Okay.
It was almost accidentally and at the last moment included in the 4th edition of Cantate Domino, an ecumenical and cross-cultural hymnal published in the World Council of Churches in 1974. And it so happened that my hymn of acceptance was just the right length to fill the 2 blank pages that needed filling.
That's the reason it got published.
Yes.
Because it fit the space. Wow.
Yes.
Is that the real world, or isn't it? Wow. Oh my. Ha! That's great.
This is one of the most powerful hymns on reconciliation and forgiveness composed in the last half of the 20th century.
It goes beyond that for me. It's about justice.
Yes.
Lord, for today's encounters with all who are in need, who hunger for acceptance, for righteousness and bread, we need new eyes for seeing, new hands for holding on. Renew us with your Spirit, Lord. Free us, make us one. Make us one with who? For the people who are in need, make us one with them. Man, that's very powerful. And it's powerful because we want to put up boundaries between those and those who are in need sometimes. Because those who are in need, maybe they have some other things about them that make us a little leery or a little reluctant.
Well, we like to think of ourselves as those who serve those in need.
Right. Yep. I remember the story of a pastor, and I can't remember where this happened, but I heard the story in seminary of this one pastor who had this homeless person who the church helped a lot, and they provided them with emergency money from time to time, and they provided them with food. And once they were fine with that, but once the pastor put that person up to lead worship as a lector, then people had a problem with it because they thought that this wasn't the person's role,
Right.
And that's interesting.
See, that's the problem with roles.
Yes.
None of us fit into our role entirely. Yeah. And when we don't allow people to branch out and be exactly who they are and who God meant them to be, then we don't see the whole person.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. Any other thoughts, or should we move on to the next one?
We can move on.
Okay. The next song is Lord of the Dance.
I danced in the morning when the world was begun. I danced in the moon and the stars and the sun. I came down from heaven and I danced on earth. At Bethlehem I had my birth. Dance then wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance, said he. I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. I danced for the scribes and the Pharisees. They would not dance, they wouldn't follow me. I danced for fishermen, for James and John. They came with me, the dance went on. Dance then, wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance, said he. I'll lead you on, wherever you may be. I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. I danced on the Sabbath and I cured the lame. The holy people thought it was a shame. They cut and they stripped and they hung me high, left me there on a cross to die. Dance then, wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance, said he. I'll lead you all, wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. I danced on a Friday when the sky turned black. It's hard to dance with a devil on your back. They buried my body, but I'd gone. I am the dance and I still go on. Dance then, wherever you may be. I am the Lord the dance, said he. I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he. They cut me down and I leapt up high. I am the light that will never, never die. I'll live in you if you live in me. I am the Lord of the dance, said he. Dance then, wherever you may be. I am the Lord of the dance, said he. I'll lead you all wherever you may be, and I'll lead you all in the dance, said he.
Okay. So this was published in 1963, and it was written by Sidney Bertram Carter.
Okay.
His obituary in 2004 began with the bold assertion that Lord of the Dance was the most celebrated religious song of the 20th century.
Huh. The most, really?
Well, remember, it was in his obituary.
Okay, sure. No, I'm not laughing that he died. I'm just laughing because, I mean, we tend to all remember things favorably that way.
Right. But it captured the spirit of the 1960s protest movement in the United States.
Really?
And it became a sacred equivalent for songs by Pete Seeger in the late 1950s, including Where Have All the Flowers Gone?
That's amazing. I do not think of protest songs when I, not like Pete Seeger protest songs when I think of this song.
It lists more. To Everything Turn.
Yeah, the Birds. That's from Ecclesiastes,
And
yeah.
Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind.
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. Yep.
While the direct and even for some sacrilegious language, accompanied by the folk acoustic guitar, bordered on heresy for some, for others these songs were a breath of fresh air. Lord of the Dance brought this sound and spirit into the church, especially in services designed to reach young people.
Right. This is fascinating to me. I just never heard any of that. I'm going to be honest. It's not like I did a deep dive into the history of Lord of the Dance.
Right.
But I don't know. I just never thought about it as in the spirit of the '60s protesters. Yeah.
He called this hymn a carol.
Carol.
And it was not the first song on the theme, Tomorrow Will Be My Dancing Day. So this was a favorite of youth groups in the 60s and 70s and spread far beyond the Christian community, partially because the song never mentions Jesus by name.
It's pretty obvious who it's about.
Yes. So Carter,
That's right. Yeah, I guess
Carter
that's true.
said this: I see Christ in the incarnation of the piper who calls us. He dances that shape and pattern which is at the heart of our reality. By Christ, I mean not only Jesus. In other times and places, other planets, there may be other lords of the dance, but Jesus is the one that I know first and best.
Okay, now that sounds cosmic. That sounds like a trip.
I sing of the dancing pattern in the life and words of Jesus. That is fascinating because that would probably come as quite a shock to some.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. The other part of that is that, we're called into that dancing action. We don't think about it as a dance. We think about it in different ways. But, part of following Jesus is to take on sufferings ourselves.
But life is sometimes a bit of a dance.
Oh, yes. Sometimes life is a balancing act, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, thinking about this hymn, we sang this hymn in 2006 at my grandfather's funeral.
I remember that.
And I don't know if you remember. I don't know if my parents remember.
I remember your dad pointing it out.
But in the car on the way to the cemetery, my dad said he just happened to mention we buried my grandfather on a Friday, and it was raining. And my dad said, and I danced on a Friday when the sky turned black. It was a Friday that was right before Palm Sunday. And therefore, right before Easter. And I guess I've never looked at the hymn
The same way
the
after.
same way since.
Yeah.
And it's not that
Well, so I feel the need to say that it's not like you're saying your grandfather is Jesus.
well, that's what I was going to say. That verse wasn't speaking of my grandfather in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But what it did is it said to me, God is here.
Yep.
That Jesus could dance.
Well, isn't that part?
At the time of Jesus' greatest suffering and at the time of ours.
That's part of the reassuring part of our faith is that, we go through suffering, but we have a God we worship who knows that suffering and took that on for us and understands it on a very deep level because it happened to him in the life of Jesus, and it happens to him abiding alongside of us. I believe that God is very, very saddened by the state of the world right now, and very saddened by the sorrow that people are feeling, and very saddened with the deaths that are happening. That's part of it.
But Jesus will dance, even when the sky turns black.
Yep.
And we don't sorrow alone, because the Lord of the dance is with us. Even in those harder times. And those harder times, they're part of the dance of life too.
Should we do our last song?
Sure.
Okay. This is not a hymn. For the past 3 weeks, I think now we've done ones that haven't been hymns. This is from pop culture as well. I knew this song when I was a kid. I love this song. The song takes me back. But it has a really interesting message too. This is the Tears for Fears song, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Welcome to your life. There's no turning back. Even while we sleep, we will find you acting on your best behavior. Turn your back on Mother Nature. Everybody wants to rule the world. It's my own design, it's my own remorse. Help me to decide, help me make the most of freedom and of pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to rule there's a rule where the light won't find you, holding hands while the walls come tumbling down. When they do, I'll be right behind you. So glad we almost made it, so sad they had to fade it. Everybody wants to rule the world. I can't stand this indecision, married with a lack of vision. Everybody wants to rule the. Say that you'll never, 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 never need it. One headline, why believe it? Everybody wants to rule the world. Everybody wants to rule the world. Roland Orzabal, I'm going to say that last name wrong. He wrote this intentionally to sound like a happy song, but in fact, to be about something very serious. And in his mind, he was writing about dictators. He was writing about people who've been oppressed by their government. Everybody wants to rule the world. Welcome to your life. There's no turning back. For even while we sleep, we will find you acting on your best behavior. Turn your back on Mother Nature. We are human beings who desire control. It's part of the human thing. It's part of who we are. We want control, and even when we are pressed with times when we don't have as much control, oh my word, do we press back. It's just a natural thing,
But it's not only a human thing. It's also distinctly perhaps a more Western thing. Mm-hmm. It's not as much on the Eastern Hemisphere.
Right.
I think about the different responses to the time that we're in now. Mm-hmm. And how in some countries they say stay in, and okay, everybody is just in.
Well, you just talked to a friend of yours who lives in China, mm-hmm. and they're a lot more back to normal than we are, in part because the people have been listening to those.
Right.
Now I'm going to say that there are people in this country who would say, well, in China they're used to being controlled, but I think that's a little I don't know, judgmental of the community, but
and while that may be true, mm-hmm. In some ways that has helped them because they are able to do what needs to be done, and they have this. He was showing me they have this app mm-hmm. that they take with them on their phones, and everybody has a phone. They have this app that they take with them on their phone, and they check in everywhere they go, and their temperature is taken everywhere they go. And that way, there's a record of where they've been, and if mm-hmm. somebody tests positive that has been where they have been, they will be notified and they will have to self-isolate. Mm-hmm. If their temperature is above normal, it's not like they're just told, okay, go home. The police will actually come and take them to a hospital type of place, I guess, to check them over.
It's so hard to have an honest discussion about this stuff because it's a loaded conversation and it pushes a bunch of our buttons community-wise and people-wise and society-wise. I think sometimes doing the right thing looks different in sometimes than it does in others. I don't think we can be absolutists about things. Like I want my life like I like it, and I want that all the time regardless of what else is going on. That's a very selfish way of looking at things.
That's what this says.
It is, right.
Everybody wants to rule the world.
Everybody wants to rule the world.
Everybody, where is that line about freedom?
Help me make the most of freedom and of pleasure. Why, when we talk about freedom, why do we always talk about pleasure? I mean, Martin Luther wrote on the virtue of Christian freedom. And Martin Luther, when he wrote about that, it wasn't so much about freedom to do what we want. It was freedom to serve God. Like it was freedom. And so Martin Luther would say, essentially in that, one of the lessons of that, and colleagues from seminary can correct me on this if they wish, but I believe one of the main points of that was you got to serve somebody. In what you're doing, you're going to serve one master or the other. And if you're not serving God, you're serving the other master. And I don't think me doing whatever I want is always serving God. As a matter of fact, I think that's often not serving God. It's serving the God of our heart,
Well,
the God of our gut. I serve that God way too much.
I think that if we're going to be honest about who we should be serving God means sometimes giving up our own pleasures for the
others.
sake of others.
For others. So the sacrificial nature in which we are called to live right now.
Is biblical.
Yes.
It is. I'm sorry. There's no two ways about it.
I know. I mean, I've said to people time and time again, it's not like I want things this way. Do I want to go where I want? Yes. Do I want to have the ability to plan my week as I want to, to make sure that I have this time to do this thing and this time to do that thing? Yes, I do. But right now I have to give that up right now. I just have to.
Staying in is the loving thing to do.
Because it's loving for those who are vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. And because, frankly, it's not just the vulnerable who are getting sick with this.
Right. Yep.
Everybody wants to rule the world.
If it were up to me, we'd have 2:00 in the afternoon services every Sunday. That would be me ruling the world. I get to sleep in all the time. That would be ruling the world. Now I never get that. I used to get it very rarely, but now with Timmy, forget about it.
Timmy wants to rule the world.
Timmy wants to rule the world. Yes. Oh my. Yes. We're going to go pick him up in about a half hour, and he's going to say, "Did you get me a prize?" And I'm going to say no, and he's going to go, "Oh." We all want that. We all want, not a prize, we all want things our own way. And so we're challenged this time, in this place, to think about how we can live out not our own volition, but God's volition and God's intentions for us, rather than our own. I talk about that a lot. And I think, we think about that and, that sounds nice, but really I want to do what I want to do. Mm-hmm. This is our challenge. All right, I think we blathered on enough about that. Don't you?
Probably.
Okay. We'll be back again next week, God willing. Hope everyone is doing well. And
have a good night.
Thank you.